All right, class. Today we're doing section 6.2. It is all about power of zero and combining like terms. So our goal today is to simplify and classify expressions with exponents. This is on a guided note sheet, so you should not be writing anything in your notebook. All of this should go on the notes handout. So if you don't have a notes handout, raise your hand so we can get you one. Everybody good? Okay, the title's already on the handout. The goal is not. So I'll give you guys a second to get the goal down. All right, so the first thing we're going to talk about is what does it mean when you have an exponent that's a zero? So we call this the power of zero. Anytime you have any number, we're just going to use a as a variable. So any number a to the zero power equals the number 1. And that works for any number except 0 for the a. So 0 to the 0 power is not 1. Any other number to the 0 power is the number 1. So basically that means that anything raised to the 0 power becomes a 1. Not a 1x, not a 1a, a 1. Any questions on that idea? All right. Why? Students often struggle with, well, why is this true? So let's do a little exploration activity. I'm actually going to work from the bottom up, and this is in your notes too, so do this with me. How would I write out x to the 4th power? Like we did yesterday. How would I expand that? I would write 4 x's, right? Everyone agree with me? So the exponent tells you how many x's you're going to have. So the exponent here was 4. I have 4 x's. Now if I wanted a number in the front, what would that number be? Yes, sir.
It would be 4.
The coefficient in the front. Anytime you don't see a number in the front, it's like having a what?
A 0.
A 1. So I'm going to write this as 1 times x times x times x times x. Any questions on what I did there? So any ideas about how I would write out x to the 3rd?
1 times x times x times x.
Very good. 1 times x times x times x. Good. Everyone agree with me so far? Everyone on board with these two? All right, let's keep going up. So the next one would be 1 times x times x. Now we need 2 x's. Next we would need 1x. What would you need on that top line? Just the 1. There you go. That's the punchline, okay? Anything to the 0 power is 1. Any questions so far? These examples are not written in your notes, but there's space in your notes for these examples, so go ahead and write these down. I'll give you a second. All right, so right under the activity we just did, there's a number 1, a number 2, a number 3. You should write these problems down. These will go very quickly, because what's 15 to the 0 power? 1. What's 7 to the 0 power? 1. Now, I threw number 3 in there to try to trick you, because what is to the 0 power on number 3? Is it the 3 and the x, or just the x? Yes.
It's the 3x.
If it was the 3x, it would be in parentheses. But it's not. So is the 3 to the 0 power?
Yes.
3 is to the 1st power. If you had to put an exponent on 3, it would be to the 1st power. Okay, let me show you guys again. If I wanted it to be 3x to the 0 power, I would put parentheses. And then you would know everything inside the parentheses is to the 0 power. That is not the case here. So what is the only thing to the 0 power? The x. So this part becomes a 1, but I still have what in the front? The 3. And what's 3 times 1? 3. Very good. So don't get crazy with these. Every time you see a 0 power, you just put a 1 automatically. It's only the base that's taken to the 0 power that turns into the 1. Kind of a tricky concept there. Alright, next we're going to talk about combining like terms. We did this in chapter 1, so this should not be anything new. But again, like I said yesterday, since we are doing a whole chapter on exponents, we're going to start by just reviewing all the basic things we know about exponents. Then we're going to learn some new stuff. So today, this part should be mostly just a review. So like terms are terms in math that have the same variable and the same exponent, and we combine those like terms. All right, so to combine like terms is your next definition. It's when you're adding or subtracting terms that are alike. So to be like terms, they have to have the same variable combination, which means same variable, same exponent. When they have the same variable and same exponent, we can add or subtract them. And we add or subtract them by adding or subtracting the coefficient. Do you guys know what a coefficient is?
It's another word for exponent.
It's actually, you're close. It's another word for the number in front of the variable. Co usually means working together. So it's the number that's working together with the variable. So like 2x, it's the 2 part. Okay, so we add or subtract those coefficients and we leave the variables the exact same. Do you guys have any questions on these two definitions? Again, these should be something you've heard of before. This is where we're bringing in the new stuff. So you should have all these definitions on your notes. It's on the very bottom if you want to follow along with me. All right, so we're going to go through these one by one. If you want to make additional notes, that's fine. But all these definitions are already on your notes for you. So just follow along with me. Add some things if you like, or just sit back and listen if you like as well. So the little star says that plus and minus signs separate terms in an expression. So when I say terms, terms are the parts that are separated by pluses and minuses. Okay? Well, let me show you a quick example. So something like 2x plus 9. 2x is a term, 9 is a term. If I put minus y, well now y is a term. Okay? These are all terms separated by plus and minus signs. The y, I would actually argue it's negative y is the term in the back, but that's a topic for another day. So anyway, depending on how many terms an expression has, we have a different name for it. We talked about monomials yesterday. A monomial is when there's only one term. So you won't see any pluses or minuses. It's a monomial. Have you ever heard someone say, like, we're going to go mono? No?
No.
That's like when you're going to go one-on-one with someone. Mono means one. Have you heard a word with mono in it? Like monopoly. It's when one business dominates the whole market.
Oh, Montana?
I'm.
Yeah, it's like a video game.
Oh, there's a video game? Okay. I'm not familiar with that. But it starts with mono and it means one?
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Okay, so there's a video game. Apparently it has the M-O-N-O. The beginning of the word mono means one. Any questions on that one? All right, a binomial, the first two letters, bi, means there's two terms. So like a bicycle has two wheels. Same thing here. Bi means two. So when you see binomial, that means there's two expressions. Trinomial is the same thing, like a tricycle has three wheels. Same thing here. Trinomial has three terms. And then anytime you see poly, that means many. Like if you believe in many gods, it's called polytheism. You probably heard that in like your history class. Or like polygamy is when a guy has a bunch of wives. So many is poly. So if there's 4 or more terms, we call it a polynomial. All right, so when you're trying to figure these out, just look at the beginning of the word. Mono is 1, bi is 2, tri is 3, poly is 4 or more. Many. Any questions on these vocabulary terms? All right. We are on the back of your notes. These problems are not written for you, but there is a space for them, so I'll give you a second at the beginning of each problem to write them down. Here we're doing x plus x plus x. So I want to simplify first, so that just means combine the like terms. Then we're going to classify the polynomial solution. So number 4, we have x plus x plus x. I don't see any coefficients, but I know when I don't see a coefficient, it's like having a 1 in the front. So these are all like terms. They're all the same variable with the same exponent. So you can add the numbers in the front. Add those coefficients. What is 1 plus 1 plus 1? 3. So the answer here is 3x. We don't change the exponents at all. 3x is my answer. Now, how many terms are there in my answer? Remember, terms are separated by plus signs and minus signs. So do you see any plus or minus signs in the answer? Any plus or minus signs?
Yes.
Is there a plus sign in this box?
No.
Is there a minus sign in this box? No. So we only have one term here. When there's one term, we call it a monomial. So there's 2 answers to all the rest of these questions. We're going to simplify the expression, then we're going to classify it. So 3x is the answer, and that answer is a monomial. What are your questions? All right. Here's number 5. I don't know why these PowerPoints always make my minus signs look tiny. That's not a trick. That's a minus sign. So I have x plus x minus 3y plus 7y. If I needed a coefficient with those x's, what would it be? What's the number in front of those x's? A 1. So I have a 1x and a 1x. The x's are like terms, so add their coefficients. What is 1x plus 1x? 2x. Now, here is where it gets tricky. That negative or that minus stays with the 3y. So it's like negative 3y plus 7y. What is negative 3 plus 7? Negative 3 plus 7. The 3 is negative, the 7 is positive. So we subtract the numbers, keep the sign of the larger number. It's actually a positive 4. So you'd say plus 4y. Some students like to rearrange those. If you like to think of it as 7y minus 3y, that might help you out there. Because everyone can see that 7 minus 3 is 4, right? But a negative 3 plus 7, it gets a little tricky there. So if you want to switch the order to help you with the signs, that's fine. Any questions on how I got this as my answer? Okay, now how many terms are there on the board? 2. Do you see the plus sign in the middle? That separates the 2 terms. So my first term is 2x. My second term is 4y. So what would I call this? Binomial. Bi means two. Binomial. Make sure you get both answers down. Questions? All right, so we're getting some more variables, variable action here. Remember, they have to have the same variable, same exponent as well. So what's going to go with negative 3x squared? The 1x squared. Very good. So careful with your signs again. What is negative 3x squared plus 1x squared?
Negative 2x squared.
Keep the squared. Yes, negative 2x squared. Very good. Now we'll focus on the x's. So what goes with 4x? Negative 4x or minus 4x. Good. What is 4x minus 4x? 0. So you could put plus 0x. And then what do I still have on the end? Plus 12. There's no terms that are going to combine with that. Now, this answer is not wrong. It's just sloppy. What is written up there that is not necessary? The 0x. Adding 0 or adding a 0x means nothing. It's just taking up space in my answer. So get rid of it, okay? This is just negative 2x squared plus 12. So I've done half of the problem. I simplified it. How am I going to classify it? What would I call this? A binomial. There are two terms. Negative 2x squared is a term. 12 is a term. So this is a binomial. So make sure you simplify the expression completely, because if you classify the answer before it is simplified, you will get the wrong answer down here, okay? If you classify this, you'd call it a polynomial. If you classify this, you call it a trinomial. You can only classify the absolute simplest form of the answer. Does that make sense? I'll take that as a yes. Take a minute, write this one down. Now, as you're writing this one down, you probably are saying to yourself, hey, I need to simplify those parentheses first. But look, these are not like terms. You can't add x and 10. You cannot add x squared and 4. So that's not really going to work here. Does anyone remember? Distribute. Very good. We are going to distribute the numbers in the front of the parentheses. So I'm going to write it out step by step. Actually put a plus sign right there. Now, some of you won't need that purple line because you can do the multiplication in your head. But I just showed you there exactly what I'm multiplying by each term. The first two terms, the x and the 10, are being multiplied by a negative 3. Back here, the x squared and the 4 are being multiplied by a positive 2. So next, I'm just going to simplify. Negative 3 times x is negative 3x. Plus negative 3 times 10 is negative 30. Plus 2 times x squared is 2x squared. Plus 2 times 4 gives me an 8. Next, you can start combining like terms. We always put the biggest variables in the front, or the biggest exponents in the front. So I'm going to start with the x squared. Does anything combine with the 2x squared? No, so I'm going to write that guy in the front. Next, I would look at the x's. Does anything combine with the negative 3x? No, so I'm going to write that as minus 3x. And then another place to be very careful with your signs. This is a negative 30 plus 8. So we're going to subtract the numbers, keep the sign of the larger number. So my answer back here is going to be a negative. The term is negative, and it's negative 22. Any questions on how I got that answer? First you distribute. I simplified the multiplication. I combine like terms. How many terms are there? 3. So I would call this a trinomial. All right, here's number 8. So I have 2xy plus 6xy plus 8xy. What's going to combine with 2xy? 6xy and 8xy. These are all like terms. They're all xy terms. So add the numbers in the front. What's 2 plus 6? 8. What's 8 plus 8? So the answer here is 16xy. Now, for some reason, students will say, oh, this has 3 terms in it. 16, x, and y. Terms are separated by what? Addition and subtraction signs. Do you see any addition and subtraction signs here? No, this is one term, 16xy. So this is a monomial. What are your questions? Are you ready for the final example? All right, go ahead and write this one down. Again, I don't know why I don't like those little subtraction signs. So we have negative 6x squared y plus 4x squared y minus 2x squared y plus 7x squared y. We will start with the x squared y terms. So what's going to go with that first term? The negative 2x squared y. Okay, anything else? Is there any other place you see x squared y?
The 7.
The 7. All of it. Yes, these are all like terms. And there's a lot going on up there. But what we actually have to do is just the coefficients for now. So negative 6 plus 4 minus 2 plus 7. What is negative 6 plus 4? That's negative 2. And what's negative 2 minus 2? Negative 4. And what's negative 4 plus 7? Positive 3. So this whole thing is going to become 3 x squared y. Again, these are all like terms. So all I did was look at the numbers in the front, the coefficients, and I went step by step. Negative 6 plus 4 is negative 2. Negative 2 minus 2 is negative 4. And negative 4 plus 7 is positive 3. And then you just bring along the variables for the right. X squared y just follows right along with the 3. And this is a what? Monomial, just like on the last one. There are no pluses and minuses. So don't say there's 3 terms. That's a very common mistake. There is just one term here. It's a big term. Lots going on, but it is still just one term. It is a monomial. What are your questions on this? You do have homework. It's the 6.2 worksheet. I'll go ahead and pass it out. You have the remainder of the hour to work on it. If you do not finish it, you need to take it with you and turn it in at the beginning of class tomorrow. If you get done during this class period, feel free to throw it in the bin.